beast on them. I go beast. Go deep, I OD on them. I OD. Apply pressure, put heat on them. Put that 500 degrees on them. 500 degrees. Go dummy, go beast on them. I go beast. Go deep, I OD on them. I OD. Apply pressure, put heat on them. Put that 500 degrees on them. 500 degrees. Countdown, levitate. Going up, elevate. Watch me demonstrate. On time, never late. I grind, celebrate. No pump, fake, hesitate. I've been scoring every day. Champagne Perrier. Since 9-3, been in the box, now stepping up to home. Like straight out the sand lot, now I'm plotting on the globe. I work hard, I show love, that karma steady growing. Got this far, I go hard, let God take control. I was starving skinny, now my weight up, got no energy for haters. See you trying, see you later. I'm shooting for the stars, need no laser beam blowing like the greatest, but it's one who's always greater.
Thank you for joining us today on Go Ed Tech Go. Today we're interviewing Shelbie Weigel. She is a certified personal trainer. Thanks for joining us today, Shelbie.
No problem.
Can you just kind of give us your background as far as how you got into personal training and kind of the steps you took and maybe some of the certificates that you have in place?
Yeah, so it all started about 6 years ago. It was a great option for me to be able to create my own schedule and work while in college. I ran track and field and cross country all throughout high school, so it made sense to stay active and stay fit. And I did have a passion for weightlifting from when I was about 18. So then I was actually at the gym and they were looking for fitness instructors. And they offered to allow me to have my on-floor training, which they would pay for. And then I would only have to get my additional hours and testing. And then I could become a fully registered CPT. So I agreed, and I started off with just teaching like spin classes and teaching like aerobics classes and movement for some older ladies. And then while I was doing that and doing college classes, I started on my 8-month journey through the CPT program. So basically the first 2 months, you're just learning theory. It's all theory. It's about 25 hours a week you have to put in. And then the next 2 months you work with a CPT, and they're going to show you some movements in real life, so you know how to do the movements if you're unfamiliar with the movements. And then the final 4 months is just practical application of the theory, and then final testing. So you get assigned to a person you need to train and basically put them on a 2-week program, and they watch you how you go throughout that 2-week program, and then you take a test and you get your designation.
And you said that you were in school, paying for school while and doing this to pay for school, right?
Yes, because the great thing about being a CPT is most people need their training either before you start school in the morning, before they start work, or after work when you're done school. So it works out. You're not having to miss classes or anything like that. And it pays really well.
Very cool.
That's awesome. So the goal, Shelbie, for us right now is to talk about your experience in training people for whatever goal that they have. And so I'm sure in your job, you have a lot of different people, a lot of different goals, a lot of different ways that you try to make that happen. But
Yes.
when you initially meet with the client, kind of like that first meeting, how do you go about determining the overall goal of the plan for that client?
So with a lot of my clients, we go through what we call like a SMART approach. So SMART stands for like the basically like the who, what, where, and the when. The M is like how much, how often, like manageable, basically specific, measurable and manageable, achievable, reward-based, and time-defined statements. So I present that to them, or I give them a worksheet and I ask them to fill or write out what they think will work for them. But a lot of the time people will come in and say, for the S specific, they'll be like, I want to lose 15 pounds in 15 weeks. And that's a reasonable goal because a healthy weight loss schedule is about 1 to 2 weeks, because that is sustainable and something that will last. And then for the measurable, we take a look at, okay, how are we going to break this down into a weekly or daily regimen for them. And we have to make sure it's attainable. So sustainable and attainable is a huge thing, because a lot of people, especially right now, I'm working with a few people who've gained considerable weight during COVID, and they're trying to lose that weight. I think a lot of people are in the same spot because we've been confined in our homes. And they all want to lose a lot of weight fast, or they are like, I'm going to go to the gym 100%, 7 days a week, hour and a half a day. No, that's not reasonable. Either you're not going to stick with it, you're going to burn out after a week, and then you'll be done with it. So that's a big part of it. And that's where the next letter, achievable, comes in, is we have to make sure that we create a plan that they can stick to and that is achievable and reasonable. And then everyone's favorite part, reward-based. So you can set a goal, say you're on a 15-week program. You can set a goal for every 4 weeks or every 5 weeks. That way you get 3 rewards throughout the program. And usually what I recommend to everyone is like the first 5 weeks, you'll usually find you've lost 5 to 7 pounds, maybe a new workout outfit. The next 5 weeks, big thing is a lot of people will lose some swelling in their feet. So you might want a new comfortable pair of shoes. And then the last one is like a good like spa day, because you did it, you're at your goal weight of like your short-term goal. And that's like a favorite amongst most of my clients. I work with a lot of females. And then time-defined statements. So like reasonable timeline, 15-week timeline.
I think the spa day is great, but I would probably go for the shoes on 1, 2, and 3. That might be my thing. So you talk a little bit about like goals. What is the typical goal? When does somebody come to you? Like, what's the majority of your clients trying to do?
Lose weight. So a lot of the people I'm working with, my marketing is targeted towards females, and it's targeted towards people who've just finished college. They've most likely put on some weight throughout college because they're very focused on their studies, especially with COVID. No one's been going really outside. So I'm trying to put them on reasonable weight loss goals. And sometimes, and a big thing, is that those weight loss goals aren't going to be exactly a number on the scale. And I've put this on my social media a few times. I'm not a fan of BMI. It's one of the things that people will, when you first have someone and you do some fitness testing, stability testing, and some people will rate you on a BMI index. And I disagree with that, because for my own personal reasons, I don't think that just a weight should define someone, and it shouldn't. Part of BMI is measuring like your skin, measuring like your, what kind of cultural background you come from, because everyone's built differently. But a lot of people become fixated on that number, and they're like, oh, this number says I'm 155 pounds and 5'4". I'm severely overweight. That's not true. So what I work with a lot of my girls, and a reasonable goal, is we're looking at inches lost in certain areas or inches gained in certain areas. So inches gained on the arms, inches lost around the waist, etc.
Yeah. So another question I have is, if a client comes in and they have this unrealistic goal, how do you kind of talk them off the ledge and kind of educate them about what's right and what's not right?
I find that I have the most success with that when I'm breaking it down into something tangible and reasonable for them to understand. So a really good way for me to show it is I grab something heavy, which to a lot of people starting out is like a 5 or 10 pound weight. And some people are like, I want to lose 10 pounds in a week. There's no way. You lift the weight up to them and you're like, you want to lose this. This is not reasonable. Where is this going to come from? It can result in unhealthy eating habits. And if you do unhealthy eating habits, this, and this will happen. If you're just become obsessed with exercising and only doing cardio and not eating enough, then this, and this can happen. I'm not trying to use it as a scare tactic, but it's just the truth, especially if, one of the things we ask about someone is their medical history or their medical background. If they're diabetic and they start cutting out meals or not eating at the times that they should be eating, they can have insulin crashes and get super sick. So it's not to scare them, but it's just to be very honest and real with them. Like, these are the things that will happen if you cut or if you cheat the proper process.
That's a really good segue into kind of the next big question. So before we jump into like the actual training, the proper training, a question about diet we'll start off with. So I know there's different types of training out there and different goals that people may have, but when it comes to like your clients that you work with, what are some typical dietary recommendations that you give them for their specific needs?
So when I'm giving people advice, because for me, I'm not comfortable offering someone a nutritional meal plan just because I am not an expert in that area, and I will acknowledge that. I work actually with a holistic nutritionist who helps me create meal plans. But before I introduce her, what I tell the people that I'm working with is that, okay, let's just start by trying to change your eating habits into something healthier. So we're looking at clean protein. So we're going to stay away. I'm not sure if you're familiar with like the Mediterranean diet. We try and go more towards that way. We're looking towards clean sources of protein: chicken, turkey, tofu. If you're vegetarian or vegan, you're going to need a lot more. And then eating a lot of, people are very scared of carbs, but you can get good carbohydrates from vegetables. So I'm encouraging a lot of that because it's also filling. So getting them to eat more vegetables. And then what I do is, instead of, a lot of people will like try and say, oh, I only eat lunch and dinner, I'm being so good. No, that's not sustainable and that's not good for your body. So what we focus on is eating regular meals, maybe spread out throughout 5 times throughout the day. Balance your carb intake, balance your protein intake, and we just split that up over 5 meals throughout the day, 5 small meals throughout the day, because then it'll keep you fed and full throughout the day. You can get through your exercises or your workout without feeling faint or passing out, and it's sustainable.
Yeah, so you talked a little bit about cardiovascular. Can you give me, like, you have a client come in, can you give me a typical, cardiovascular plan, just cardiovascular plan for maybe a week, right? What would you have them do during that week in order to maintain or to improve their cardiovascular system?
Yeah, so this is like actually a really great program I put almost everyone on when they're first getting started, because a lot of people right now, especially with the people that I'm speaking to or working with, because like obviously right now I'm not working in person with a lot of people, is that they've been sitting or watching Netflix or sleeping lots, and they haven't been getting a lot of movement. So we don't want to like shock them. So what we do is we start off with a slow and long day, I guess, on your Monday. So let's say if we're doing Monday through Monday. So Monday, you're going to do 45 to 60 minutes of a easy, slow workout. So you can jog, you can walk, but you just want to make sure you make it to that 45-minute or 60-minute threshold. And that's just to get your heart pumping and to get your body used to moving again. And then on the second day, we're going to do a little bit of HIIT training. So that's where we're going to really get moving. And the nice thing that everyone loves about HIIT training is you don't have to do a lot of it. So what I usually encourage everyone to do is hop on a treadmill, or I should say Monday, if you're doing it on a treadmill, like most people are right now, out of 10, you're really only going to be exercising at a level 2 or 3. So it's very minimal. You don't need to like gas yourself out at all. Tuesday, if you're working on the same idea on a treadmill, you're going to be working at a level 8 or a 9. So you're going to be pushing as hard as you can, but only for 30 seconds. So you run as fast as you can for 30 seconds, and then you stop. You just hop off the treadmill, wait about 60 to 90 seconds, and then hop back on and sprint again for 30 seconds. And you want to do that about 20 or so times if you haven't really been doing anything. But if you've been staying active, you can do that up to 30 times. And it really isn't that much running. It's only like 10 to 15 minutes. So when you break it down to someone like that, it seems way more tangible and doable. And then if we're doing it on a 7-day workout plan, the third day we go back to a slow run or a slow walk. So you're just like letting your body recoup from the day before. The fourth day is your rest day. So you can just put your feet up, relax, let your body rest. That's a really big thing for just encouraging muscle growth too. You need to have a rest day. And then day 5, we're going to do tempo. So what that means is like you're going to be in that sweet half spot. So maybe level 5 or 6, and maybe just like for 30 minutes or so, but you're going to put a little bit more effort in to just kind of over time, hopefully help bring up your tempo. And then the next day, we're going to go back to a slow long run. So you're going to be back to 2 or 3 day or level 2 or 3, back to 45, 60 minute. And then on your last day, you go back to hit. So you push yourself, and you should be able to go harder because now you've had a whole week of just building. You've had your rest day, and you'll be good to go. And then you do that for at least 2 weeks in a row, and then we can get more into the weightlifting and powerlifting.
That's excellent. That's a great, again, segue right there. What's an example of some of the strength training exercises that you have your clients do in order to increase kind of that physical power they have?
Okay, so that one's a lot of what I do on a daily basis, and because strength and power also is like works hand in hand with building your muscle. So what you want to do is you want to go to the point of like break, so to speak, because that's what's going to release these certain proteins that will help grow your muscles and help increase that power and strength. Depending on what kind of days you want to do, usually my power days will be a pull set of exercises. So those are movements in which you're pulling.
Go dummy, go beast, oh no. I go beast, go deep, I OD, oh no. I OD, apply pressure, put heat, oh no. Put that 500 degrees, oh no. 500 degrees, go dummy, go beast, oh no. I go beast, go deep, I OD, oh no. I OD, apply pressure, put heat, oh no. Put that 500 degrees, oh no. 500 degrees, countdown, levitate, going up, elevate. Watch me demonstrate, on time, never late. I grind, celebrate, no pump, fake, hesitate. I've been scoring every day, champagne Perrier. Since 9-3, been in the box, now I'm stepping up to home. Like straight out the sandlot, now I'm plotting on the globe. I work hard, I show love, that karma steady growing.
Whether that be rows or similar exercises for like back, shoulders, and chest are all going to be those will be pull days, and then your push days are going to be your leg days. So your legs, your glutes, and then some examples of those is you're going to be doing some like heavy squats. So you're not going to be doing a high amount of repetitions. For example, if we're doing a leg day, you're going to do maybe 6 reps max. Usually it's 5 to 6 reps max, but you're going to load. So you're going to do your first set of, say we're doing a set of 4. Your first set will be moderately light. So usually maybe what you do usually if you're doing 10 to 12 reps, and then it gets progressively heavier. So then your next set, you'll maybe do, you'll probably do 5 or 6 for those first 2 sets. And then the last 2 sets, when you're doing like your PR, which would be like your personal record, you're going to go as heavy as you possibly can, but only 3 or 4 reps. And then it's basically you're going up to the point where like you feel broken. But that's what you want, because that's what's going to help build you your power and give you that muscle growth.
Go dummy, go beast, oh no. I go beast, go deep, I OD, oh no. I OD, apply pressure, put heat, oh no. Put that 500 degrees, oh no. 500 degrees, go dummy, go beast, oh no. I go beast, go deep, I OD, oh no. I OD, apply pressure, put heat, oh no. Put that 500 degrees, oh no. 500 degrees, countdown, levitate, going up, elevate. Watch me demonstrate, on time, never late. I grind, celebrate, no pump, fake, hesitate. I've been scoring every day, champagne Perrier. Since 9-3, been in the box, now I'm stepping up to home. Like straight out the sandlot, now I'm plotting on the globe. I work hard, I show love, that karma steady growing. Got this far, I go hard, let God take control. I was starving skinny, now my weight up, got no energy for haters. See you trying, see you later. I'm shooting for the stars, need no laser beam blowing like the greatest, but it's
Yeah, so you talk about the muscle growth. What are some of the muscle groups that you target during this time when somebody comes in to try to lose weight? When you're making these plans, what are some of the major muscle groups that you really focus on?
So I mean, it really depends, I guess, on the person that you're training. Right now, I'm working with a lot of females. So we're working a lot, obviously, on glutes. We're working a lot of women are quad dominant. So a lot of our exercises are actually reducing the push on our quads, and we're using more our hamstrings and our glutes, which you can do with bands. But those are definitely the three like glamour muscles that you'll come across for females. And then for males, we're going to be working with lats, your lats, your traps. Traps are really big for guys, and bis and tris, and girls too. Don't be afraid. Bis and tris are a big thing. There's nothing wrong with having strong arms, and you're not going to get huge overnight. So there's no stress there.
You're just cutting them in half, right? Top half guys, bottom half girls. That's what it sounds like.
Well, so usually what I do is I break out a workout over 5 days. So for females, a lot of girls are really afraid of building their arms, and a lot of girls are afraid of working on their chest a lot because they're like, oh, I'm gonna lose my upper body. But you can't be afraid of that because that's not what's gonna happen. But you have to work with what your client wants at the same time. You can't force them to be like, oh no, you're never gonna get big. We're gonna do bis and we're gonna do arms and we're gonna do back 3 times a week. They're not gonna actually put the effort into the exercise, and they're not going to reach their goals. So you kind of have to build a plan that your client or the person that you're going to be working with will actually want to do. But yeah, so for women, most often that means leg days 3 days a week, and then we split the back and the bis and tris on like usually Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then we do legs and glutes Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then for guys, it's opposite.
So with training these programs, I'm sure patients or clients come in sometimes with injuries, previous injuries, things they're trying to improve upon. How do you deal with client injuries, and how would you modify a workout so they can continue to progress toward that goal, even when dealing with maybe a previous injury?
Yeah, so a big part of that is because sometimes people will know that they had an injury, but they won't even know how they're limited by that injury. Because a lot of people, especially young people, when you're working with people who are maybe around anywhere between 20 to 35 years old, they're like, oh yeah, I got injured in college, but I'm fine now. But most often than not, they're not fine. So that's where I run them through a fitness test first. So we're going to measure like their core instability to see how they are on either each arm or each leg, strength and endurance. And the other big one is like flexibility. So like you'll do like a sit and reach test just to see, where if they're leaning forward, where they might have a certain muscle pulling that's restricting their movement. And then from these tests, I can modify exercises. So like, let's say, for example, we're doing rows and someone has a rotator cuff injury. They're not going to be able to do that as effectively because they're just going to be pulling on everything here, and it's just going to bring them pain. So what we'll usually do is you work with bands first. So instead of maybe loading them with weights, we're going to modify and just work on perfecting the movement using very lightweight bands. And it's going to be more about perfecting a movement. For a big guy, obviously that's going to be a little bit of a hurt to the ego. But 2 months down the road, they're going to be able to start doing like 25, 30 plus pound weights when before they couldn't even move their arm in a full circle. So just making little modifications like that. But I find a lot of the time making those modifications, you have to convince your client that that is something that will take time, but they eventually will reach their end, especially if you're working with stubborn guys.
You talked at the beginning, you talked a little bit here about testing, right? And I saw your Instagram post about BMI, and we've talked about BMI in our class, and what that really means, and it's not really a good number for the most part for most people. But I know you're not into the BMI thing, but are there certain tests that you run for your clients as they come in so you can kind of watch their progress as they go? Yeah, so like I was just saying really briefly, so I do strength and endurance testing. So when I'm working with that, one of the things I do for endurance is like the Cooper test. It's a really commonly used test. If you actually look at most fitness watches or apps, there's a 12-minute timer on there. So basically on this test, you ideally want to do it on a track. Obviously, if you don't have access to a track, you can do it on a treadmill. You just want to make sure it's on a slight incline. And then you're going to time how far someone can get in 12 minutes, which based on the amount of meters that they've, well, in Canada we use meters, but based on the amount of meters that they've run, you can assign them a score going from very poor to very good,
one of the cool things that you can do with the Cooper test, I'm not sure if you've talked about it in your class, is you can also use it to find out your VO2 max, which is what a lot of athletes are starting to use now. The other thing that I like to do is that's how I like to see where people's recovery may have landed. So that's when you're doing like the flexibility, like the sit and reach test. And then it doubles as not only a test to see where your clients are at when they first start and what movements will be safe for them, but it also acts as a way that you can measure their progress. So the one big thing that you'll notice when you're training, or if someone's in a strict training program, they almost are always walking around with a little notebook. And that's because they're usually recording everything down. So if I'm not available to test them, they can test themselves to see where their progress is at and maybe see where they may need to improve or spend some more time if they're not maybe improving as quickly in one area over another.
That's excellent. And you kind of answered one of the questions we were going to address, but you kind of go a little bit further with it. How often do you test your clients over the course of like a training plan? And what are you really looking for at each checkpoint?
So for me, so that people don't feel, because like the biggest thing you're going to encounter is like, obviously you're working with humans. So if people lose the desire or the commitment to keep at it, they're going to stop. They're not going to eat right. They're not going to work out. And then your job becomes useless because they're not going to listen to anything you say. So a big thing about it is I like to test everyone every 2 weeks, and I'm just looking for some sort of improvement. It doesn't need to be anything too crazy, even if it's 5%. They're running 5% further, or their heart rate maybe is stabilizing when they're doing more of that HIIT training. That's all I like to see. And then that's where that reward system comes in, is like you want to remain positive, because a lot of the time when someone reaches out to you for personal training, they've already exhausted YouTube. They've already exhausted Instagram. And now they need someone to help motivate them personally. So you don't also want to like scare them away and tell them, oh, you're failing at this, you're failing at this. It's compliment sandwiches.
So that actually leads in. I don't know if you know what we're doing, but literally like one thing leads into another perfectly. So that makes our job easier. Do you address the mental state of your clients at any point? And then what role does that play into how well they progress through a system like yours?
Absolutely, because especially now, which is fantastic, mental health is coming to the forefront of a lot of everyone's minds. You know, it's an actual thing that you can go to see a doctor for and talk about, and it's normal. You're not going to feel like you're crazy for it. And a lot of it, especially because everyone's coming out of COVID, I find, and I know this isn't just COVID related, but right now I've noticed it in almost everyone I've worked with. Everyone is a little bit more blue. And the people who I'm coming to see have gained, as they describe, they're the heaviest they've ever been. And that's because we've spent the last year, for the most part, inactive. So a lot of it, that's why I'm huge on the reward-based system, and I'm huge on speaking to my clients. So before I meet with them, sometimes I'm meeting with them once a week, sometimes I'm meeting with them 3 times a week, whether that be in person or digitally. But it's about creating that compliment sandwich and encouraging them. So I always ask to see how they're doing, where are they struggling, and then, you know, it's about tailoring their work system to help them where they may be struggling, but also remain positive. Like if they are struggling, be like, oh no, that's okay, just keep going. And then what's really cool is if you can, if you're only seeing them once a week, see if maybe you can Zoom chat with them while they're doing the workout and just offer them positive words of affirmation, because that really helps, especially with someone who hasn't been very fit most of their life. Say you're working with like a 30-year-old mom, then if she's alone and just working out maybe in her basement, and she's just seeing the number on the scale not changing, maybe the inches around her waist not changing, it'd be super helpful to just have someone in the corner just cheering her on, rooting her on, just to keep going. And that's like where positive music even comes in, just anything like that.
That's awesome. So speaking of kind of like the advice, that encouragement that you give them, I know something that may be overlooked by, I think, everyday people is the idea of hydration and maybe the importance of hydration. And so what advice do you give your clients kind of before they work out, after they worked out, and then maybe throughout the day to kind of maintain that proper hydration level?
Yeah. It's basically just going to be like whenever you think you're not thirsty, you're thirsty. So keep drinking. I encourage a lot of them to download. There's a whole variety of apps you can download. There's even some that are tied into like MyFitnessPal. If you're ever working with anybody, MyFitnessPal is a great app. It lets you track your food, lets you track your workouts. It all goes into one place. It's a really popular one that everyone uses. But just put reminders in your phone. So like, you know, you can set an alarm on your phone, set an alarm every 2 hours, drink an extra glass of water. The big thing that I like to encourage everyone to do is before you do your workout, a lot of people will be taking their pre-workout or maybe their BCAAs during that time. Finish a whole bottle of water before you even get started on what you're doing. I know a lot of people are super into dry scooping right now in their pre-workout, but still please drink a whole bottle of water. And then during your workout, try and drink 2 bottles of water if you're just drinking a standard bottle, or you'll see like a lot of people who work out have those big gallon jugs. Try and go through at least half of that if you're going through like an hour-long workout. I don't know if gallon's the right size, but it's like the big bottles. Always try and drink. I know some people don't all agree, but try and drink a full like cup of water before bed, because like while you're sleeping, it's important even then to stay hydrated. So always like a bottle or a cup of water when you first wake up, cup of water before you go to bed. And then obviously throughout the day, just like drink water. You're going to have to pee lots, but your skin's going to look great.
So our students are going to use kind of this interview. They're going to do what we call Train to Champion, and some are going to choose to be personal trainers. So we know that you have an Instagram and you put a lot of your workouts and lifts and ideas and thoughts. Do you want to kind of just give them where they can find that so that we can let them know if they want to follow you while they're doing this project? Maybe they can go find some things and utilize them for their project.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Instagram is just at Beast, BEAST, XFit, because my nickname is Shelbeast. My name is Shelbie, but my nickname is Shelbeast because I'm a beast. But if you go there, there's a lot of different exercises actually on that Instagram. So one of the things I really try to focus on, and a lot of people bring it up, is that almost every workout is a little bit different. And while it's good to have like a core exercise plan that is consistent and similar, it doesn't hurt to have a few movements, maybe 2 or 3 movements every workout that are a little bit different, because they get excited about it, especially if they're videoing their progress or taking photos of their progress. If they can find new and challenging movements to do and incorporate into the workout, you're most likely going to have someone that's going to remain more committed to their regimen. Yeah, so on there's like dozens of different variations of the same workout.
And so kind of the last kind of end question here that to kind of get your opinion on is that for the students that are here that we teach, they're going to be exposed to a bunch of different careers in the medical field and the fitness field. What advice would you give to a student who, after watching your interview and maybe after like researching a little bit, wants to become a CPT? What advice would you give to that student?
My biggest advice would be, if you can, I know like in the industry, there is a lot of, and I'm guilty of it. I have my degrees in business, but if you can, take some science classes. Obviously you're in the Biomed Academy here, or get some sort of background in science, maybe I think down there it's called an associate's degree. You can get some in sciences, because it's going to give you a lot more background knowledge about how everything works, and you're going to come across people who need that extra care, and that's what's going to separate you as a CPT versus, you know, Mr. Joe, who's also a CPT but maybe might be a little bit more like me. Because that's where I've definitely struggled, right? Like my client base has been a little bit more limited in that aspect, where I find like instead of getting to work with a lot of up and coming athletes who are looking to progress a little bit further, I'm working more with your average human being that is just looking to improve their general fitness levels. And the bonus that comes with that is you can charge literally almost twice as much. And those people who are looking at increasing their athletic ability for a job are usually going to be available during the day, so that your whole day doesn't become working mornings and weekends, or mornings and evenings and weekends, because then you have like the whole middle of your day and you're almost working split shift every day if that's your only job.
Yeah. Well, we want to thank you for joining us from the Great White North up in Canada. And I'm sure our students will be following you on Instagram, and will be utilizing all of this information you gave us. So we really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to kind of talk to our students.
No worries. You just have a great day.
All right, you do the same.
Thank you, Shelbie.
No problem.
Go beast on 'em. I go beast. Go deep, I OD on 'em. I OD. Apply pressure, put heat